Hello YouTube and Patreon, this is Nathan P. Butler, and this is our project update for the month of January 2021. So Happy New Year. It's been a new year since we spoke last. Change of a lot of things in the U.S., including a changeover of presidency, but we will see how 2021 treats us after 2020 basically abused and beat the crap out of pretty much everybody, right? So what we want to take a look at here is what new stuff has come out recently, and I'll give you a couple of notices about what is coming up in some respects here. But first, let me thank all of you who are backers over on my Patreon. That, of course, is patreon.com/NathanPButler. Over there, you can be one of the travelers through the Butlerverse. That's that $1 tier. Gets you a thanks in these episodes, in the credits and whatnot, and I say them out loud as long as it's sort of a manageable number. You also get thanks in the Patreon credits page in a Saga on Home Video 2nd Edition. More on that soon. In essence, you're getting triple out of that than you would have before, but we will get to what that means here in a moment. We then have the denizens of the Butlerverse who get that, but then also get access to the audio commentaries I put up each month, typically 2 each month for episodes of the Clone Wars as we go through that series chronologically. And then you have the Nobility of the Butlerverse tier, which is the top tier, which has grown quite a bit, which is the $10 tier, where you're able to get access to exclusive Q&A videos every single month. Our last Q&A video, I think, was the biggest one we have ever had. Went into a mixture of, I think it was Marvel and Star Wars stuff, but then also some really personal stuff as well relating to, like, what would you have told yourself back in 2016, looking back from the end of 2020. So pretty cool stuff there. If you're interested in it, again, patreon.com/NathanPButler. That's the one thing I always try to mention each time because I kind of want to explain what it is so I can explain who is being thanked here and explain what it is that has come out since the last release. I don't do a lot of that smash that like button kind of stuff or hit subscribe, ring that bell kind of stuff. I figure if you want to subscribe, you know how to subscribe. If you want to like a video, which I don't even really pay attention to, you're more than welcome to like it. You know how to do that already. I don't have to tell you. I do want to thank everybody who is a backer over there on Patreon. So to start with, we have the Travelers Through the Butlerverse, who include Travis Cook, Caleb Owens, Justin Richard, Preston Ellis, Jeremy Goss, Ben Abrams, Michael Torson, Jacob Kapoor, Tony Jenkins, Kevin Kreiner, Austin Pierce, and Chris Walker. We then have the Denizens of the Butlerverse, who include Alexander Santos. Great to see Alexander interacting again. He'd been interacting in the past and whatnot with the podcasts and all that. Craig Clayton, Matt DeRochers, Joseph Blankenship, Daniel Marchand, Travis Taylor, Andrew Gilbertson, Walker Langstrad, Nathan W. Mortimer, Jeff Ellis, Joy Zitzman, Stephen Malicia, Robert Medina, Bobby Craig, Jeremiah Mustard, and Jason Hunt. Then we have the Nobility of the Butlerverse, including Connor Stireman, Jeff Rabjohns, Matthew Hardesty, Kyle Pellegrini, Innes, Jonathan Confer, Sam Howard, David Ray, Brian Snook, Andrew Bettis, and Benjamin Handelman. Like I said, it's getting to be a bigger group. Lots more questions in the monthly episodes. I'm actually thinking that if we have any that are like the last time, I may wind up breaking it into 2 monthly Q&A episodes just to kind of make it easier on the file processing and uploading end of things. Because I want to say the last one went well over an hour because of all the questions, which is awesome. But it does mean that, it's a little bit trickier to get it uploaded and exported without having to constantly, wiggle your finger on the little pad. Because if you don't, it's going to go to screensaver and might screw up, etc., kind of stuff. So speaking of screwed up, before we get into anything else, not a whole lot of work being done book-wise right now as far as actually stuff that requires me to type at a computer. I have injured my forearm. My wrist is fine. It pops a little bit, but that's just because I'm old. But somehow, I think just from constantly picking up our son, who's almost 30 pounds now, and getting him into and out of a car seat and stuff like that, I managed to injure this. They say it's just tendonitis. They think it's just, inflamed or whatever. I keep a brace on it fairly often, just not right now. But basically, I can move my wrist fine, but as soon as I try to move my wrist and my forearm together, it starts to hurt like hell. Which unfortunately includes getting it into typing position. So not a lot of typing going on with the book right now. Unfortunately, it also impacts my work. I teach online. That involves a lot of typing stuff. And unfortunately, I can't really type like this. I have to type, with my arms in the right positions. And it just hurts to do it, which slows me down, which winds up meaning that some work stuff, the non-immediate stuff, gets pushed off into the weekend. So that's fun right now. Just means less time to get anything else done. But thankfully, since the last of these updates, we had a semester break, which means a lot of stuff actually got done. Just not sure how much before the next update. Got a lot of episodes recorded in some multiple episode bursts from the Star Wars Home Video Library, so I'll give you the information about those here in a moment. We also have some other stuff going on and a big piece of news about the book. So, to start with, over on Patreon, what has come out since the last update? Well, on Christmas Day, we finally finished up the commentaries for Forces of Destiny. Had 2 out of the 4 ages ago, had 1 released on Thanksgiving Day, then on Christmas Day released the last one. So if you want to watch Forces of Destiny as those 4 volumes rather than the individual episodes, the volumes just combine 8 episodes at a time and give it a framing story. You can watch those on YouTube and listen to the commentary to go with it if you are a denizen or member of the nobility of the Butlerniverse over there. We then had the Clone Wars commentary, it's number 80 in that series, by the way, for Escape from Kadavo on January 1st. We had the Butlerniverse exclusive Q&A for the nobility over there on January 8th. That was Q&A number 37. 37! And then we had Clone Wars commentary number 81 for A Friend in Need, which of course introduces Bo-Katan, back on January 15th. For what it's worth, the commentaries for Deception, Friends and Enemies, The Box, and Crisis on Naboo, the next 4-episode arc where Obi-Wan goes undercover as Reiko Hardeen, those are all recorded, edited, and ready to go. They'll be released 2 in February, and of course 2 in March to wrap up that arc before then we get into April and May, dealing with, I believe, I haven't recorded it yet, but I believe the Maul arc, which will be pretty sweet. Now, before we get to anything for YouTube, just some odds and ends stuff that I want to make sure people do get a chance to see, just in case you jump off after the YouTube stuff. One, I was supposed to be recording with Brock for the year-in review on books and comics and such for Star Wars Action News. We never did get a chance to actually make that happen, so my guess is that I'm not part of that this year unless they just delayed a bunch of stuff. I haven't heard anything. Same thing with an interview I was supposed to be doing with another podcast that we were going to record, I believe, over Thanksgiving break. Never happened. It's becoming much more difficult for me to schedule live recordings, which is why I retired from podcasting, just because with turnover happening quite a bit where my wife works, she's working a lot of weekends, which was my main time to be able to record that sort of thing and still be able to get some of this done on the weekends as well. So it's been a little trickier right now. However, I would note a couple of interesting things relating to podcasting, one in which I was involved and one in which I am not directly involved here. Let me pull up the screenshot here for you. So you may recall that when I retired from podcasting, I had been doing podcasting for 18 years, the longest running continuous Star Wars podcaster. The fact that I was the longest running, though, does not mean I was the first. I was early, was not the first. Prior to me launching Chrono Radio back on, May 16th, whatever the day was that Attack of the Clones came out of 2002, before me, you had sort of 2 waves, I guess you could call them, of some podcasting, or whatever we would call podcasting now. Back then it was just called internet radio shows, typically either streaming and then files released later, or just files released directly, but you had to go hunt them down and download them. Pod-catching software didn't exist yet. Neither did the word podcast. But in February of 1999, February 7th, 1999, we saw the launch of Jedi Talk, which was a streaming through Real Audio, Real Player Star Wars show that eventually got released as downloadable Real Audio files. And then, sort of inspired by that, which was in English, you had 3 different shows pop up in 2001. You had Star Wars On Direct, which is a French-Canadian show primarily in French. Eventually, they also had English episodes and then went back to just French, had a break there along the way. Then we also saw the German Star Wars The Cantina, which I believe was a spin-off of SF Radio. And then you had the standalone, non-streaming, just downloadable English show called Digital Llama Radio, which is more the direct influence on me launching Chrono Radio and all. There were some before Chrono Radio, obviously. they influenced me. And the celebration of those shows is tending to happen right around now, at least for half of those 4. On February 7th, we will be seeing what is referred to as Star Wars Podcast Day, organized by Daniel Contreras over on StarWarsNowThis.com, which is Now This is Podcasting, but not affiliated with the podcast of the same name, as far as I know. Daniel is sort of a historian when it comes to Star Wars podcasting and trying to bring podcasts together into sort of an archival space, a guide-type space to kind of help point you to different shows and that sort of thing. So he's running StarWarsNowThis.com at this point, and has organized with people like the team behind Star Wars on Direct, or Mark and Jim from Star Wars Beyond the Films, this Star Wars Podcast Day to celebrate the fact that on February 7th of 2021, that is the anniversary of Jedi Talk premiering back in '99. So keep an eye out for events related to that. Again, the website is StarWarsNowThis.com. In the meantime, Star Wars on Direct, or Star Wars Live, translated from French, because they told me what it was, not because I speak French. Star Wars on Direct, despite, kind of changing formats and such over the years, has just celebrated its 20th anniversary. And as part of that, and given their place in the early Star Wars radio show / podcasting genre, they had a big celebratory 20th anniversary episode, which included a video stream, which included messages from fellow podcasters and members of the Star Wars community, myself included. You can search for this 20th anniversary episode on YouTube. The name of the episode, because it's in French, is Star Wars on, that's E-N, Direct, dash, 20, it was like Ans de Diffusion, or something like that. It's A-N-S-D-E-D-I-F-F-U-S-I-O-N, diffusion, right? I will put the name down here. If you play that to 3 hours, 33 minutes, and 49 seconds, you will see my message to the team. Kind of a congratulations on the 20th anniversary, and really kind of celebrating their place within fandom and within the history of Star Wars podcasting. So I was glad to be able to contribute to that, and of course congratulations to them and to Daniel on organizing the first Star Wars Podcast Day. Now, speaking of other stuff, outside of stuff before we hit YouTube, I recently, along with Mark Hurlman, had the opportunity to be basically, for the second time, in my case, used as a source, I guess, is one way to put it, used as a reference in a scholarly Star Wars work. The first time for me was way back when Will Brooker did Using the Force Creativity Community and Star Wars Fans back in the day. Now, Dominic, or Dom Nardi, and a partner, Derek Sweet, have put together this book, which is actually meant more for like university publication, so it is a little pricey. This book called The Transmedia Franchise of Star Wars TV. Transmedia meaning multiple media across different media and so on. Again, edited by Dominic J. Nardi and Derek R. Sweet from Palgrave Macmillan. We are not contributors, but we get referenced in here when discussing various issues, particularly relating to continuity and whatnot, which is kind of cool. So, available in ebook form, available in physical form, little pricey, probably not something you're likely to pick up unless you really are interested in scholarly Star Wars works, but it is a pretty cool read because it does take it to a scholarly level that even something like the essay collections that I contributed to from Sequart didn't quite take it to in terms of the references and in terms of sort of deconstructing things. So I was glad to have been referenced in that. I thought that was pretty cool and did want to point that out because I didn't think to point it out last month. Then before we get to the book news, at least for a Saga on home video, what do we have here as far as new releases on YouTube? Again, I tended to record a bunch of episodes in a batch, then another batch, and then another batch, and finally got most of the ones from those batches edited, but I do still have quite a few from my last recording batch still sitting there waiting to be edited. So there's more to come when I get a chance to edit. But we had, I want to say, something like 19 episodes from the Star Wars Home Video Library released just since the last of these updates, thanks to those big bursts of recording and the fact that I was on semester break. So, we had from the Star Wars Home Video Library, number 354, looking at the Umatic formats, looking at a couple of U-matic items. 355 was a Japanese dubbed original trilogy VHS set from 2000. 356 was a Spanish dubbed Phantom Menace VHS copy from the US. 357 was a Hebrew subtitled Phantom Menace VHS from Israel. In 358, we looked at the very first sell-through VHS copy of A New Hope from the UK. That was actually an episode I was not initially happy with, and we had a guy kind of blowing up with the fact that, you know, I described it, I think, as a Trumpish way of arguing without nuance, just bitching about it and causing a storm that eventually lined up with that person being banned from the Star Wars Facebook home video group. But that and some more information and more conversations over there prompted me to actually re-record that episode. So we do have an episode 358 on the first sell-through A New Hope VHS from the UK, but we actually had it go up basically twice. The original gone, replaced by one that actually takes the time to talk about PAL a little bit more and talk about sell-through versus retail versus mail-away and so on, and how that differed between the US and the UK. And I keep doing this. You're like, his arm doesn't hurt. I'm keeping it as steady as I can so it doesn't hurt. And if it hurts and I cuss, I edit it. So you're not seeing the pain. I just didn't think it would look good with the wrap on. I'm starting to regret that. Let's see. Then after that, 359, The Toys That Made Us on Blu-ray and DVD. Then 360, a Revenge of the Sith CD from the UK with a limited edition slipcover to show that different type of release. Turns out we've discovered since then there is at least one other color, I think gold, for those. But I was at least showing you one example here. Episode 361 looked at a Clone Wars film DVD release out of the UK in a gold DVD case. 362 was a Japanese Season 2 kind of fancy Blu-ray release coming out of Japan of Clone Wars. If I said Clone Wars there, but Clone Wars Season 2. Then in 363, we looked at some bilingual products from Canada that had both English and French on the packaging, which I thought were pretty cool. I just kind of like those things. 364 was looking at some promo items, a 1997 like a pre-order advertisement card kind of thing, and then a 2002 Attack of the Clones mock-up VHS case. I actually have one now for Phantom Menace that I'll be able to show from the UK in a future episode that's not recorded yet. Let's see, 365, we took a look at the first UK A New Hope Laserdisc. 366, 367, 368, those are the ones where we finally looked at the rest of the Zavvi UK 2020 steelbooks for all the live-action films. We'd already looked at the original trilogy, so 366 was the prequels, 367 was the sequel trilogy, 368 was the anthology films. Then 369, we looked at the Ultimate Soundtrack Collection, which at the time, and we showed it because it included a DVD, but at the time, just looking at the package, I was under the impression it must have been a European release. It was, but it was also an American release. Apparently the American and European releases were identical, right down to having a German rating and such on the DVD, but apparently sold across regions without having different regional packaging and labels, at least in places where English was on the labels. 370, we looked at a Russian VHS release of The Phantom Menace. 371, we looked at a French VHS release of The Phantom Menace because we could talk then about CCAM. And then in 372, we took a look at an Italian mini Cinex, which is like a little, projector thing that you cranked that, shone on the wall to let you watch small clips out of A New Hope. So, there's a lot more stuff recorded back when I recorded those last few episodes, and has not been edited yet. Later today, I will be recording 2 episodes so that I can then sort of slip one of them into the mix and then do one after those are all edited. Just because I have the stuff here ready to go and I want to go ahead and get them recorded so I can put them onto my shelves in the appropriate places. So you will see one episode kind of slipped into the mix with this shirt as opposed to whatever the hell I was wearing when I recorded a crap ton of episodes recently. Okay. All that being said, what's going on with the Saga on home video, aside from the fact that I can't hardly type right now? Well, this afternoon I'm doing some more printouts, so I can do more hand editing. Tons of new pictures have gone into the book. The list of pictures that need to be taken is relatively small right now, as is the list of new topics to add or information I need to get, much of which is dimensions of art cards and stuff like that I need to get out and measure. But, speaking of measuring, big decision has been made regarding the book. I almost did this, but I think it was going to hurt my wrist. Big decision has been made regarding a Saga on Home Video 2nd edition. I was getting to the point where I was concerned it was going to be so thick that it would be unwieldy and incredibly expensive because it is fully in color. Part of the issue with that was the fact that also, aside from the fact that it would be so big and just kind of unwieldy to carry around, even if you were carrying it around to read the physical copy, having a book that's that thick means that in some cases, without really hurting the spine, it'd be hard to see images that go all the way to the margin towards the spine, depending on which orientation the page was, left or right. And then it turned out that Microsoft Word basically made the decision for me. Microsoft Word started choking on the sheer size of the working file for a Saga on Home Video 2nd edition. And I wasn't sure how much I could continue working on it, and to what degree I'd be able to add to it later if I were to make a 3rd edition as the same volume. So something had to give in terms of size. And after getting some feedback from the Star Wars Home Video community over on Facebook, it's a great group of people, I came to the decision that a Saga on Home Video 2nd edition will not be a single book. A Saga on Home Video 2nd edition will now be 3 separate volumes. Each volume should be about the size or maybe even a little bit bigger than the original A Saga on Home Video, except of course completely in color. They will be treated as if it is one long volume in the sense that the chapter numbering will continue from volume to volume, and it will be assuming that you may be reading one, then the other, because for instance, references in one chapter in, say, the 2nd volume might point to a topic that had already been discussed in the 1st volume. But the way it's going to break down is basically chapters, I think it's 1 through 6, and the introduction. Those will be volume 1. So that's going to be the chapter about the Kenner movie viewer and Super 8s and stuff like that. And then the Great Format War chapter, the THX Remastered Edition chapter, the Special Edition chapter, the Rise of DVD, Demise of VHS chapter, and the Lucasfilms in HD chapter. So yeah, 6 plus the introduction. And now each volume will have a foreword to go with it. Those will be essentially volume 1. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call it yet. I can't really call it the Lucasfilms because there are releases that'll be covered in volume 2 that come after 2015. It's basically the Lucasfilms, the live-action films, covering basically from initial releases all the way up to the end of 2015. But that makes it difficult because I can't really call it the Lucasfilms because technically Clone Wars is in there. There are the Lucas live-action films, but I also have to note that there are releases after that. So I could call them the Lucasfilms and then put the dates, but that still wouldn't include Clone Wars, so I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm going to call them. It might be something like original and prequel trilogies, and then the date, or something like that. Or Lucas's trilogies, because that would leave out Clone Wars, and then the date after that, or something like that. I'm not quite sure what the first volume is going to be called yet. Then, volume 2 is going to be all of the newer stuff, starting basically once you get into 2016 with the release of The Force Awakens. So that'll be less chapters, but a huge amount of pages because of all the different, variants that were released each time those films were released and re-released and re-released. So that's going to include the chapters Enter Disney, the new chapter Rise of 4K, Demise of 3D, a chapter called All Together Now, and I'm trying to think if there's any other chapters with that off the top of my head. I want to say that is how it's broken down. So basically what you've got is a chapter on Force Awakens and Rogue One, a chapter on Last Jedi and Solo, a chapter on Rise of Skywalker, Skywalker Saga, and everything else surrounding it, including the Black Border releases and stuff like that. So with that, you'll have sort of 2 volumes on the live-action films split at the 2015-2016 mark. Split basically when Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment comes into the picture with releases for the newer films. That one, not sure what I'm going to call it. Might call it the modern era. Don't know yet. But that'll be volume 2. Then volume 3 is going to be basically everything after the film coverage, the live-action film coverage in the book ends, and goes from there. So that will be, gosh, let's see, that's going to be Droids, Ewoks, and a guy named Gindi, which is Droids, Ewoks, and the Clone Wars micro series. That'll be the chapter on the Clone Wars. That'll be the chapter on Rebels. That'll be the one on Resistance, which is new. That'll be the very small chapter dealing at least a little bit with Mandalorian and so on and so on. That'll be the one dealing with the Lego stuff, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the oddball items, and the tips for Star Wars home video collecting and an afterword for the volumes as a whole. All those together made up a pretty giant book. Separated out, I kind of came down to the choice between, do I either do live action all as one book and then the other stuff as a book, or do I split it into three? And the decision to split it into three came down to the idea of keeping each volume about the same size, which will also mean hopefully about the same price, but also giving me plenty of room to continue expanding upon them for a third edition if there ever is one, particularly for that second volume on the newer stuff, rather than having all the live action stuff together being much bigger than the other volume and more difficult to add to over time as needed. This will also give folks who, really only care about a certain segment of Star Wars home video to focus in on whichever volume they would rather check out, and I would hope that it also allows for the possibility of someone who maybe wants to pick it up but can't, buy a whole gigantic book at once because of the price, to be able to separate it out and get one here, one here, one here along the way. But suffice to say, for logistical reasons, and what I think will turn out to be a positive change overall, yes, there are 3 volumes as opposed to 1 for the second edition of a Saga on home video. What is the last one called? What else could it be called but Beyond the Films? So, yeah, I'm working on those. Those are what I'm going to print out. All 3 volumes are going to be printed out for some hand editing here soon, because I can sure use this hand-to-hand edit even if I can't really type as well with this one just yet. But hopefully this will be back in typing form in the relatively near future. They think it's just a tendonitis, so hopefully that just, the swelling goes away. The swelling goes away soon. Lots of stuff out since the last release because of the break. New news on what's coming. Be sure to make sure to check out some of those oddball items like Star Wars Podcast Day, because that will have passed by the time the next of these videos comes out. I look forward to recording more in the near future, including more stuff for the commentaries to get them front-loaded for Patreon, and getting more of those episodes already recorded From the Star Wars Home Video Library, edited and out there to you. So it's been a busy month. Thank goodness. Not so sure that the next month will be quite as busy. In fact, I can't imagine it will be, but definitely more stuff still to come. With that, thank you all for watching and your interest. May the Force be with you. Thank you for backing over on Patreon if you have, and I'll see you in a month.